There have been numerous failed television series over the years, but some are more notable than others. Join Factsverse as we explore classic TV shows that only lasted for one season or less. Three's a Crowd. There are few failed spin-offs quite as notorious as Three's a Crowd. As one might infer from the name, the series was a spin-off of Three's Company. However, the only member of the cast that carried over to the new show was John Ritter. It was meant to be a showcase just for his character of Jack Tripper, and the fact that the show only lasted for a single season shows how good of an idea that was. Of course, a big part of what made Three's Company so popular were the show's female stars. However, the networks kept thinking that all people really cared about was John Ritter. Infamously breakout star Suzanne Somers was fired from the series after asking to be paid the same amount as John Ritter. She played Chrissy Snow, and the show lost a good deal of its popularity after she left. And of course, the third character was Joyce DeWitt's Janet Wood. When Suzanne Somers was fired, a new character was brought on, played by actress Jenny Lee Harrison, who was supposed to be Chrissy's cousin. Joyce DeWitt stayed on for the entirety of Three's Company's run, with the series airing its last episode in 1984. A week later, Three's a Crowd debuted. Joyce's character of Janet Wood wasn't given her own spin-off series. Since Jack Tripper was the only character brought over from Three's Company, a new Three had to be formed for Three's a Crowd. During the final episodes of Three's Company, a love interest for the character of Jack Tripper was introduced. This love interest was then carried over to the spin-off series. The third member making up the Three was then that character's father, who was always getting in the way of the relationship. Three's a Crowd proved unsuccessful, with the show only lasting a single season. John Ritter didn't find another successful TV series until just before his tragic death. In 2002, he had a hit with the show 8 Simple Rules, but he died in 2003. Sanford. Another failed spin-off that didn't make it past a single season was Sanford. It was less of a spin-off and more of a revival, only it lacked one of the original series' main character. Redd Foxx had left Sanford and Son after 6 seasons, believing he could find success on his own. When the Redd Foxx comedy hour failed, his first thought was to return to the Sanford and Son concept. However, this time the actor who played his on-screen son didn't want to tag along. When the revival series was pitched, actor Damon Wilson refused to return to play the character of Lamont. Lacking the son, the concept was simply rebranded as Sanford. A new junkyard helper was introduced to play Redd Foxx's comic foil, and Dennis Berkeley played this character. Sadly, the chemistry didn't click with audiences. Sanford was only on the air from March to July of 1980, though it technically ran for 2 seasons since it was pulled off the air halfway through its first and retooled in a way that producers thought audiences might find more appealing. 26 episodes were produced, meaning it only lasted the equivalent of 1 season. All-American Girl. All-American Girl was neither a spin-off nor a revival, but it was intended to capitalize on the success of its lead performer. By the time it came in the air in 1994, there was nothing remotely new about a stand-up performer being given his or her own series. But All-American Girl marked the first time where this performer was a Korean-American woman. The show was conceived as a starring vehicle for hit comedian Margaret Cho. Like her stand-up material, it made much ado about how the comedian's mainstream ideals clashed with the traditionalist value of her Korean family. Though America loved Margaret's comedy at the time, the series proved unsuccessful. It only lasted 19 episodes, though it has since been considered ahead of its time in many ways. Before we tell you more, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Factsverse if you haven't already. This video is brought to you by Established Titles. Have you ever been interested in being a lord or a lady? With Established Titles, now you can become one. For real. You could officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, etc. You can even get it on your dating profiles. You can purchase title packs that give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland. With the purchase, you'll receive an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. Established Titles told me that the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our little Factsverse kingdom. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future, to support global reforestation efforts. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running an early Black Friday sale, plus if you use the code FV10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/FV10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. The Chevy Chase Show. Speaking of shows from the 90s that failed to capitalize on the success of their stars, it's arguable there was no greater culprit than The Chevy Chase Show. The series was a late-night talk show on Fox that was canceled after just 4 episodes, with one final episode airing in the wake of cancellation. After just 5 weeks, The Chevy Chase Show was no more. But prior to its premiere, the show had been hyped up for months. When the Fox network was first founded, it had tried to introduce a late-night talk show with Joan Rivers that was an infamous disaster. The network was then afraid to try its hand at talk shows again until 1993, when it was sure it had a hit on its hands thanks to the involvement of Chevy Chase. Chase was a major personality around the time of the show, but he was also uncomfortable enough within the parameters of his film career that he was willing to make the journey to television. Given his origins on SNL, Chevy seemed the perfect talk show host. However, he could never find his comfort zone when the cameras were on. Fox put all their money on the Chevy Chase Show to the point where they renovated the studio and dubbed it the Chevy Chase Theater. The renovations were said to have cost around $1 million. When you take into account these renovations and the hefty fee that they must have paid Chevy Chase, the Chevy Chase Show proved a very expensive project for the Fox network. The network had promised advertisers that the show would draw in upwards of 6 million viewers a night, which was 50% more than what David Letterman's show was drawing in. When the show premiered, it barely managed to pull together 3 million viewers at a time. If it wasn't for the insane amount of money that had been sunk into the show, Fox might have allowed it to stay on the air and find an audience. But their losses were already so great after 4 episodes, they were forced to pull the plug. The final episode of the series was filmed after the announcement of the cancellation was made, and Chevy finally loosened up as he made fun of the failure. The failure of the show was made more egregious when one took into account the staggering amount of celebrity guests that the host was able to secure over the course of the series' meager 5 episodes. The first episode featured Goldie Hawn, Whoopi Goldberg, Martin Short, Kathleen Turner, and Robert Townsend. Subsequent episodes featured high-profile celebrities like Dennis Hopper, Robert De Niro, Sam Elliott, Pam Anderson, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Burt Reynolds. One episode even featured a visit from Chevy's former SNL co-star Dan Aykroyd. The Golden Palace. Now back to the world of failed spin-offs, let's take a look at The Golden Palace. It was a spin-off of The Golden Girls that featured all of the main cast returning except Bea Arthur. Of course, Bea Arthur's character of Dorothy had gotten married at the end of the parent series. The spin-off revolved around the returning characters pooling their money together to buy a hotel. They attempted to run it alongside new cast members like Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin. The series only lasted 1 season, but has since found favor with modern Golden Girl fanatics after premiering on Hulu. The Mary Tyler Moore Hour. After the success of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Mary Tyler Moore tried her hand at hosting a variety series, The Mary Tyler Moore Hour. It only lasted 11 episodes, and its star didn't return to television again until 1985's Mary. That sitcom is another notable TV series that only lasted for a single season. Tabitha. Tabitha was a spin-off of Bewitched, revolving around Samantha and Darren's grown-up daughter. The series was derided as little more than a clone of the parent sitcom, with the grown-up Tabitha aping the characteristics of her mother. It only lasted a few months, starting in September of 1977, and only 13 episodes were produced. Life with Lucy. Life with Lucy came on the air in September of 1986 and was off the air by November. It was the final sitcom from legendary Lucille Ball and her first major failure. She passed away only a few years later in 1989. 14 episodes were written, though only 13 were filmed, and only 8 made it to the air. Now it's time to hear from you. Did you see any of these failed series? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.